I've been getting a lot of questions about how to create a graph in Excel. What you guys should have is data that looks kind of like this in a way. You're going to have a column here, which is the concentration of sucrose that was used on each egg. And then you have multiple eggs for each concentration. What you're going to do is you're going to take an average of those values for your eggs. All right, and I always like to label my columns because that makes it easier. If you select the column once you get the equation in there and you hit Control D, that's going to make it so that everybody below it uses that exact same equation. Now we can do the standard deviation. That's what we're going to use for error bars. Here we put an STDEV and then select the numbers we want the standard deviation for. Again, what we'll do is we will fill down so that we have the proper numbers. So here the standard deviation is for these three numbers, and here the average is for those three numbers. Okay, once we have that, now we're going to try to make a graph. And Excel is really stupid and every version is a little bit different. But if I select my data and I go up to Inserts and I go to Create a Graph, you can even do recommended charts if you want. Let's just go with a scatter with a line, that's fine. But you'll notice it's giving me some weird stuff and I'm missing like all sorts of things that I actually want to have on this graph. If I double click on the line, it will show me what it's using for the graph. Purple is X and blue is Y. Right now it's got purple as my sample 1. That's not what I want. I actually want my purple to be time. And I want my average to be Y. That's what's shown in blue. Okay. Now these other lines are not lines that I'm interested in. So I'm just right clicking and deleting those lines because I don't want them in my data set. I just want one line. All right, so now you're at this point where you've got a chart that looks like this and that doesn't have the x-axis label, the y-axis label, basically anything that I'm requiring you to have. So you're going to click on your data or double click on your data, and then you're going to go up here to add chart element. I want to add in axis titles. So let's add in a title for the horizontal axis. I'm going to call that axis time in minutes. You guys would use something like sucrose concentration for yours. Remember, this is the variable that is the one that you're controlling in the lab, not the one you're testing. Now that that's done, what I would like to do is add another chart element. I want to add my vertical axis. In this case, average sample measurement, I don't know. For you guys, it's going to be weight, and that'll be in grams. Or actually, you guys will probably be percent change in weight, and percent change in weight will be unitless. Okay. Now, I want to go ahead and add a chart title. And I can say something like, and remember, I want it to be the take-home point of the graph. So as time increases, sample level increases, or sample level increases with time, something like that. All right, so if you go to error bars and you do that, let's do that again actually. So let's add chart element, let's go to error bars and click more options. Once you click more options, you get this little dialog over here. In that dialog, what I can do is I can say, you know what, I want a custom. And in that custom, I am going to select my column where I have calculated the error. And I want the same, I want my error, I always like positive and negative error bars. It gives you both sides. No, both. Oh, I see. So that's my vertical error bar. It also has a horizontal error bar in here. We're not going to be using those because we're not going to add in that error. So what we'll do for those is we can just delete them, select them and delete them. And now you've got a line with error bars that represent the value that you calculated for those error bars. Your line is the average. And remember, error, it just means that by the time I get to this point, there's more error in my data than there was down here where the numbers were really close together. So it's kind of a sense of whatever the real value is, it's probably in between these bars. That's basically what those error bars give you. Now for my legend, I love to have a chart legend, but one of my problems is that it's in the wrong spot. I actually want to move it over to the top right, and I can do that. And then I want to give this some sort of name. It'd be like average, you know, or sample measurement or something like that. If I had multiple plots on here, I might have sample 1, sample 2, sample 3 as my dots. That's fine as well. Okay, so really this add chart element is going to be really useful for you in terms of finding the things that you need to find. Now, one thing I might want to do is I might say, well, it doesn't really make sense to have this be going up by 2 every time. And so what I'm able to do is double click on it and click Axis Options. And what that should enable me to do is change it so that my major unit is 1 instead of 2. And I just write it in and push enter. And now you can see that it's counting every single one, which in this case with these data makes a little bit more sense. I also may say, you know, I don't want it to go up to 60 because none of my samples actually went up to 60. So I'm going to double click on that axis. And again, go to the axis options. And where did I see that? Here we go. All the way to the one that looks like a graph. And then I might say, you know, I'm okay having my maximum be 50. And now my data are only going up to 50 because that's what makes sense in this case. Sometimes what I do, if I have a point like here where it goes up to 10, but I really don't want that point on the outside axis, sometimes what I do is I actually just make it go up to like 10.5. And I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's not going to show, whoops, it usually doesn't show the half. There we go. And so it enables me to keep the graph kind of pretty on the side. If you don't want these grids, you can get rid of those too. Some of your professors won't want you to have those. And so that's another place where you can kind of go here and say, I don't want any lines. And click on it and click no line, and all those lines go away. And now you've got a nice, pretty graph. You can, of course, change the size of the text and do a bunch of other fancy things like that, but this should really get you started. Remember the data you're going to use, you're going to have sucrose concentrations here, so 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, every other thing. The percent change in weight for the first egg that used that concentration, for the second egg that used that concentration, for the third egg that used that concentration. And then you should be able to look at how that weight changed in different sucrose levels. So I hope this helps you guys in your working on making these graphs. I'm going to add just one more thing, and that's that you might want to change your chart type. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'd rather have a bar graph. Then you just go up here to change chart type. And where it says change chart type, now we can change it to whatever we want. So let's say we want a column graph. Now we'll have a graph that's a bunch of columns. So you can do a lot of different things here. And it used to be that you could even, move your chart into a different sheet. But one thing you can do is you can save it as a picture. Say you wanted to like paste it into your lab report, you can do that. All right, so let's hope that this helps and clears up a lot of those problems.